there is some Rekieta news. So there is some matters of public record of interest or whatever. And I'm trying to debate how I start with this. Let's start with a song, actually. How about a proper Rekieta intro song? I'll play it out, and then I'll get to the beef of the situation.
This message from a Norwegian prude. I was sent to take out a particular dude. Nick's been framed. It was all a dirty gay up. We had it all planted by a dirty gay cop. Mr. Rekieta has got to go, so a little plan was hatched by the local 5-0. No one in this town is even gonna know that we planted the guns and the mountain of blow. We're gonna lie under oath. Nothing you can do, so screw you both. Probable cause, who gives a fuck? We're taking down a whore and a big-nosed cuck. We have reason to believe that you're abhorrent, so shut up, cuck. The judge signed a warrant. Mr. Rekieta had his rights violated, while Kayla was getting her ass dilated. We're gonna breach right through your door, then tip out your clothes and dirty the floor. Come out, hands up, we won't ask anymore. Dispatch, we have 4 kids, a hot wife and a whore. We're gonna lie under oath. Nothing you can do, so screw you both. Probable cause, who gives a fuck? We're taking down a whore and a big-nosed cuck. All these kids, they look too well. Make them look like they've gone through hell. Take that kid's nice clean shirt, rub them down with some shit and dirt. Make it look like the parents don't care, so plant some coke in that kid's clean hair. Stack up the charges, make them look like zeros. Plant all the empty cans of SpaghettiOs. Make sure to get his firearms. Don't even worry about Baldy Boy bonds. Plant an AR, stash it under the bed. Just another day of being a faggoty fed. We're gonna
Okay, I'll cut it off there. It's halfway through. I'll put the full version up on the blog, and it's also in the Mount the Internet through the Rekieta thread. So in the last episode of the Rekieta segment, I had, through counsel, filed a motion to allow recording in Rekieta's omnibus hearing. Rekieta's omnibus hearing is on the 21st. It's right around the corner. So it'll be next Friday is the time that I will be talking about the outcome of the omnibus. The omnibus is a very big hearing in Minnesota. It's basically where all pre-trial motions are submitted and handled in one big hearing. So they don't stagger this shit out. They don't make it drip feed for years. They take that right to a speedy trial shit pretty seriously. So everything that you want to say about excluding certain things, doing certain things before the jury is sworn in and before the actual trial begins, it must be done before the omnibus hearing. And the omnibus hearing hears all of it, including, interestingly, the request to record the omnibus hearing. So we're going to send in a guy. We have one in mind. He's an attorney in Minnesota who will venture out to the small county of Kaneohe County in the south central Minnesota to record the Spicer County, whatever county court handles it. And he'll go there. It's a long-ass fucking drive from North Dakota down to Spicer, and then he'll set up his camera or try to come in, and then the very first thing that the judge will have to decide on at the omnibus is if he's going to allow him to record. So it's a big time investment with possibly no payoff, but I think he's going to go anyways. So if he goes anyways, he'll be able to take notes about what happened, which is obviously not as ideal as actually recording it, but he is making the commitment, and I appreciate that. And by the way, there's a chance that he may be retained very briefly for like 20 minutes to handle my petition for the omnibus hearing to be recorded. So if that happens, it's very, very funny that for a brief moment, me, a person of public interest, or I forget the name of my position. I'm not an intervener. I'm just a public, a member of the public, an interested public person. I will have 2 attorneys in the Rekieta case, and as opposed to the one the Rekieta has. That's just interesting to me. Anyways, that's beside the point. Unsurprisingly, kind of. I mean, I was kind of on a toss-up if Rekieta would even reply, because it's like, what's the point? Like, what's the point of protesting the footage for the trial. I mean, the trial, the minutes are all public anyway, so why fucking bother? Well, we'll see. I will spare you the full reading of this. Sean, potentially criminal, went over it, and I joined him for half of it, and then a little bit more as he talked about some minutes from another transcript. But the gist of Rekieta's argument is this. First, the actual argument, and then the second, his pathetic, desperate flailing. There is effectively like one sentence in this dedicated to a meritorious argument, and that is that in the Minnesota procedure rulebook, which is drafted by the Supreme Court of the state of Minnesota, under Rule 4, it says very explicitly that the court shall not permit recording of any pretrial hearings or anything like that, including the omnibus hearing, mentioned by name. The audio omnibus is mentioned by name. And basically anything that happens before the jury is sworn in. And the idea is that they don't want the jury pool to be poisoned. However, unlike with statutory language, the language shall not is not as concrete in the rules. And both Hardin and also White in his response, I think that this entire response is drafted by Rekieta, by the way. It just reads like that. In particular, this whole thing is called Defendant's Motion in Response to Joshua Moon's Motion. That is sloppy. It's not a motion, it's a response to a motion. So it's very weird to call this defendant's motion response to Moon's motion to allow, because that's not what it is. It's just a response. It's not a motion in and of itself. That's like a pro se level fuck up, and White seems like a respectable attorney, which kind of indicates to me that Rekieta drafted this to save on money. That's just my thought on that. So the line in the rule book says shall not, but this rule was violated with the Chauvin trial, because they deemed that it was of great public importance that even the pre-trial stuff be allowed. In fact, there was another line in this before the Chauvin trial that said if the defendant didn't consent to the recording, then it wouldn't be permissible. It was another shall not. But the judge said, actually, this is of such monumental importance that we're going to allow it anyways. And then the Supreme Court, against his objections, and then the Supreme Court fixed that rule and just removed the defendant's ability to object to this at all. So it is possible that we'll get the omnibus hearing. If not, we'll have to wait until trial, assuming that it goes to trial. That's the most meritorious thing, and it's basically this paragraph right here. Argument won the law, and then he points this shit out, and that's basically it as far as the argument regarding the law. The rest of it is this shit. This guy has a forum account, or had. I've banned it. This guy's name is Jason Close. And in the off chance that Mr. Close is listening to this, I want you to know I fucking despise you. You are the biggest, dumbest, fattest piece of shit. The fact that the government didn't fucking execute you for having child pornography is an abhorrent stain on our justice system. This fucking moron filed a petition to Candido County for the warrant, claiming to be, quote, a voluntary member of the Kiwi Farms investigation group. He is in no way, shape, or form authorized to represent himself as a agent of my fucking website. And his cheeky little motion in private to Candido County is the basis of 99% of both Rekieta's ramblings in this fucking document to try and confuse the judge, and also the entire basis of Rekieta's PR stunt. So this fucking imbecile should kill himself. And I'm willing to say that. I know that if he does it, it looks bad on me. It might get me into trouble. Nobody's going to fucking miss a pedophile who goes out and after collecting child pornography and being convicted of it, goes out and pretends to be somebody else's voluntary member. Like, for real, go fuck yourself. Did Rekieta hire him? Maybe. There's actually an interesting thing, though. as much as this pisses me off, and we'll address it, because I am obviously going to respond to this and say that it's fucking muckraking and bullshit. Oh, that's out of order. I'll get to that in a second. I did ban him. This guy. I changed his name. It was just QRist. The name QRist shows up elsewhere. For instance, chat, it shows up in Rekieta Law's Locals group. He's been a unpaid member following Rekieta on Locals since 2022, since September. Almost 2 full years on Locals. He also shows up repeatedly since at least November 2021 in Rekieta's chat. This is just a cursory glance of his old streams. Not only is he an active participant of this guy's live stream, he's a paying member. He's a customer. He has a direct buyer-seller transactional relationship between Jason Close, the pedophile, and Nicholas Rekieta. Something that cannot be said about his account on the Kiwi Farms. He is not a true and honest supporter. As far as I know, he's never donated to my streams. So he's a special big fan of Nick Rekieta. And I'm sure that it upsets him that obviously we're just going to turn that around on him and say, not only, by the way, not only is he also equally a member of Rekieta's fandom, if the concern then is that you have a pedophile who is interested in your case and who wants these records, then it actually is in your benefit that this be televised. This guy, despite being a convicted pedophile, is fully able to fly to Spicer, Minnesota, show up at this courthouse, and attend the omnibus hearing in person. Literally nothing stops him. As long as he tells his officer, if he has travel restrictions, that he's going to Minnesota for a week or whatever, that can be arranged. He can attend in person, and if there are minor persons of Rekieta's relation in that courthouse, this fucking guy will be in the same building as them, which apparently he's very afraid of. Well, if it's televised, then there's no such concern. If there's a safety concern, which it sounds like there is, then televising the event would be in your interest, because people like this, who are in your fan group already, who are members of your private service and who pay you money, who seem interested in you, they won't be able to attend in person because it will be televised anyways. So we're going to turn that argument on them. There is something special. This doesn't show up on the Kiwi Farms yet. This was sent to me minutes before the stream went live. Let me find it really quick. I don't know where I put it. Sorry to tease. I have to be careful if I show this because I'm sharing it through a cloud system. Oh, Adobe, can you just fucking let me download this, please? Download this file. There we go. All right, here it is. Here's the big one. Now, I remind you, this is important because, number one, Rekieta said that Jason Close, the pedophile, wanted his body cam footage. That's his public statement. Jason Close only petitioned for the warrant, which is already public information. He did not petition for the body cam footage, so that's a lie, straight on its face. The other thing is that Rekieta is very, very, very afraid in this motion. Not this response, this motion to a response motion. He's very, very afraid that if his minor children have to testify, then Jason Close might be looking at them through the television in D.C. Well, Rekieta, guess what? Kristen Pierce, the first assistant to the Kanawha County Attorney, writes this in regards to Mr. Judge Wenzel and says, the county takes no position on the motion to audio or video record the proceedings. This case does not involve a victim. If there is not a person offense, and any testimony by minors is unlikely. The county defers to the court's decision. The prosecuting attorney has stated there will be no minor testimony in this case. You have no grounds to sit behind your kids like a fucking coward and pretend that you're just looking out for their own best interest because they're not fucking testifying, and you know that. So this is also Exhibit A in the response. All this shit, this fucking muckraking that he tried to fling around to make everybody on the Kiwi Farms a pedophile guilty by association because of this one fucking idiot is moot. And if anything, the security concerns raised by this only bolster the argument that it should be broadcasted and should not be a public zoo exhibit. I hope you're happy. He's very, very, very smug about this, by the way. But I'm patient, Chad. I'm patient. I'm willing to wait and see what happens. By the way, I'll just mention this to get it out of the way. Rekieta was ordered to pay $300 to Montegraph for court fees months ago, and he hasn't paid. So Rekieta is so down bad he can't even afford the $300 to Montegraph, who, by the way, is still suing him, and who, if he really wants to, can depose Rekieta and make his life a living fucking hell when he does so. So the omnibus hearing is interesting because, in particular, if they are going to accept a plea, they would have to do so at the omnibus hearing. Now, there is an interesting issue regarding his omnibus hearing. And his issue is this. Rekieta has an attorney. He hired Mr. White as his chosen representative. Kayla has no attorney. She is currently pro se in the case, and she hasn't actually entered an appearance. Since she bonded out, she has no representation. Rekieta, her husband, is not her attorney, and she's technically pro se and unrepresented in the case, which is why we know that Kayla Rekieta, has a plea deal, because ordinarily, when a plea deal is offered, it is given to the attorney representing the defendant, and there is no record of this on the public docket. If the plea deal is offered to a private person representing themselves, not through their representation, the state must file an affidavit that they were served this plea deal, and that affidavit is public record. So we know for a fact that Kayla has received a plea deal. We do not know if April or Rekieta have received a plea deal, but they probably have. If they offered it to Kayla, they probably offered it to Rekieta. So I mentioned that the omnibus is on the 21st, and the omnibus is a very big hearing. All pretrial issues must be dealt with at the omnibus. So everything that she would ever want to bring up before the trial begins must be done before the omnibus hearing. But again, she has no attorney, she has filed nothing, and her appearance is on the 21st, which makes it seem very likely that she will enter a plea deal as a pro se defendant, and she'll just say, yeah, I agree to the terms of their conditions. And the cookie cutter plea deal for her charge as a first-time offender is 2 years probation. April is also charged, but she has a public defender, so it's unknown if she will accept the plea deal or what her plan is. I have, after discussing this with a practicing attorney, I have a pet theory about what Rekieta is about to do. And if he does it, it's one of the most despicable things that a man could ever possibly fucking do. And I don't want to say what it is, because I feel like what I had proposed is so spineless, so disgusting, so cretinous, that Rekieta might actually do it. It's also a 190 IQ move, which a Floridian swamp genius such as myself could come up with. So I'm tempted to write my prediction down and send it to somebody I trust, such as like Sean or Alyssa Clips, just as like an intermediary, someone who would have no reason to lie. So if I'm right, I can say I'm right, and this motherfucker is such a craven bitch. And so predictable, just the most predictable craven asshole that's ever lived. I can just see him coming a mile away too. So I might do that just as a fun game. I'm thinking about it, because I kind of want to tell you what I think is going to happen, because I'm pretty sure I'm right. And if I do, you guys will. If what I believe is true, you guys will be so floored at how unbelievable and shameless Nick Rekieta is. It will actually floor you. It'll shock you to your fucking core. Send it to Ethan Ralph of the Kill Stream. That's a trustworthy person. If I've ever heard of one, just the name gives confidence. So you have good calls. I'll do it. I'll write it down. I'll send it to Sean, and then he can say if I was right or not. That's basically it. There's a big trial coming up on the 21st, and Rekieta is fighting tooth and nail to try and get this suppressed. And not only is he trying to get it suppressed, he's also using the opportunity with his absolute privilege to try and smear everybody involved in this case as a pedophile for reasons unknown to me. As I mentioned, it's an ugly and ineffective tactic because you have to understand, and this is why I say this. If you want to go out there, it's a bad idea in general to antagonize an entire community of 12,000 plus daily users. It's a really bad idea to antagonize tens of thousands of people outside of that community who have an interest in the proceedings and who might be sympathetic to that forum. To call them pedophiles, though, and to try and commit this kind of libel just out of like pettiness and spite is a really good way to piss off tons of people, like more like really piss people off. Not just like, oh, what a like, oh, this really deserves to get stomped. Like, it's a good way to incite people against you, which is always a bad idea. If you ever invite trouble, trouble will find you. That's how it works. There's another thing that I wanted to say in regards to that. I don't know. I don't know what he's doing. I mean, I kind of feel bad for him in a way, just because the behavior that we are witnessing is the behavior of a cornered animal. Someone who's like primitive brain is taking over because he's a fearful person and he's incapable of taking accountability. And there's a part of me that winces when I see this kind of whinging. It's like so pathetic that it inspires pity. Like, it's not the behavior of a 40-year-old father of 5. It's the behavior of like a 16-year-old boy trying to get out of a DUI charge. You know what I mean? It's like, should be over this by now. The false copy of Sunder, for one, says, I binged 6 months of Maddie a while back, and I clearly remember when you first reluctantly introduced criticism of Rekieta. Crazy how you've been dragged into this situation almost against your will. Well, me wanting to find out information is definitely something I could have not done, but I want to. I have an interest in this case, and as a member of the public, I intend to exercise my rights to witness it. I guess I should just say this. I've hinted, since you brought this up, I've hinted throughout my streams before I just started openly flailing or flogging Rekieta and Barnes, I guess at this point, that I was very reluctant to criticize him because I wished well for him, and I didn't want to make things worse for him by being openly antagonistic beyond what I considered reasonable at that time. So I would criticize some things, but I would also try and be more than fair about it. And the reason why is I felt that there was a kind of debt owed to him. And you may be surprised to know what that debt is. I never received any money from Rekieta. I never received any favors from Rekieta. But once upon a time, I was being sued by a woman named Melinda Scott from the mountains of Western Virginia, not to be confused with West Virginia, the Appalachians of the west side of the state of Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia. And I needed an attorney from Virginia to represent me, one who would be interested in taking on a high-risk client and discussing and going to bat for civil rights at a very low rate or a reduced rate because it's a vexatious litigation case. Rekieta referred me to Barnes, and Barnes referred me to a civil rights attorney that he knew, who he knew of because of his very prominent work in FOIA lawsuits. And his name is Matthew Hardin, the same Hardin who is now filing to televise his omnibus hearing. So I've always felt, because I cannot really understate how useful Hardin has been over the years, I've always felt a kind of debt to him for introducing me to a lifeline that effectively saved the site at least 8 fucking times at this point. And it's very sad. Like, even now, like, yeah, sure, Rekieta is the biggest muckraking retard on the planet. Yes, he obviously neglected his children. Yes, he exposed an 8-year-old to cocaine. Yes, he let them live in filth and squalor for months at a time. Yes, he disrupted his monogamous relationship to introduce a hot wife for no reason other than to sexually satisfy his own fantasies. Yes, he's now calling everyone who criticizes him a pedophile, as a desperate flailing animal in a cage. But But once upon a time, in a much happier era, he did me a really good solid, and it's unfortunate that the situation has digressed in such a way. Chat. Sneedberg Stein Goldman for $48 says, hasn't Nick let Drexel be around his children, not to mention his associations with self-admitted pedos and Nick's multiple pedo jokes? Yeah, I mean, some guy like rounded up things like I remember playing on stream. He made like a really, really, really disgustingly inappropriate comment about a little girl who was like in so much pain she was like shitting herself because she couldn't function. And for some reason, Nick thought it would be really funny to make a diaper joke, like diaper fetish joke about her. And it's like it's a little girl who's in such agonizing pain that her bowels don't function anymore. It's not really appropriate to implicate her in some kind of ABDL lifestyle. And the reaction from the people he was talking to was like shock and horror. Even then, it's not pedophilic. It's just a really bad joke. But I mean, his association with Vito is worse than the forum's association with Jason Close. Baldo Peggins for 5 says, if Rekieta takes a plea deal, then he better film himself in his car immediately afterwards with his wife and side piece singing, it's God's plan. I won't be sufficiently owned otherwise. Yeah, dude, all 3 of them in the car. Oh no, all 8 of them in the SUV. After all that hubbub about, no, they can't see my kids, then it'll be the 2 Rekietas and April and then all 5 kids and they're like dancing in the backseat of a car saying, it was God's plan, God's plan, God's plan. What? God's plan. Look what came on the radio. That'll be them. That's how it ends. That's the day that the Kiwi Farms is epically owned so hard that we have to shut down, I think.